Hey all, it's Eagle Aaron, and I wanted to do a video and talk about the USA politics again. You know, it's been a while since I made a video about that, but even though it is kind of a recurring theme, I mean, there's this election going on, so can't really be surprised about that. It is kind of high importance, I guess. But I did want to make a video just because a lot has happened, and I wanted to um, you know, talk about what my thoughts are and stuff. And I was thinking, like, what can progressives do to help Joe Biden win? Now, what a lot of people seem to suggest is that by treating Joe Biden as if he were, say, Bernie Sanders, you can help him win. So, things like getting on social medias, things like uh, phone banking, canvassing, like making political videos for him or whatever. Like that. The thing is, like, none of that is actually gonna work on voters for Joe Biden because what those types of campaigns work on is people who don't normally vote. That is an attempt to expand the voter base. That's an attempt to get non-voters to actually start engaging in the political system. And that is only possible if the stuff that you are reaching out to them to is going to help them and make their lives better. And because Joe Biden didn't offer them anything like that, um, you know, maybe some really lukewarm, sort of half-hearted stuff you could try and market, but really it's not really going to get many of them because many of the problems are way more serious than what the solutions are, and they also don't really trust him and stuff. Rightly so. Would you trust him? You basically asking them to play your game with them, not to vote for something, but to vote strategically, and that's a much harder sell than if they actually had something to believe in, to vote for, to say, I'm going to vote for this person because I believe in their ideas. I believe in what they want to do, not what they say and who they're against. So those strategies aren't really going to work. Now, maybe what you could do is try to flip Trump voters and say, like, you know, this and this and that, but then that means you should be like, that's more only going to work on like friends and family. Like, you're not really going to reach a Trump voter if you're not part of the echo chamber, if that makes sense. Like, they need to think that you aren't part of the other team. They need to already think like because you know them in personal life or whatever, you're already friends with them, that you're not there to trick them or whatever. Then they might actually be open to listening to what you have to say regarding which is better politically and stuff. But I think for the most part, it's kind of crystallized. There's people who support Trump and there's people who support Biden, and then there's people who, still want to vote. They don't support either, but they still want to vote for whatever strategic reason. And then there's people who just don't vote at all. And so, yeah, so if you're thinking about like what can progressives do, like we failed to get Bernie the nomination in the primary, and we failed to move Biden left. Now, attempting those things and losing is still better than not attempting them, because a lot more people are going to get radicalized now because of Bernie's run again, and then him losing it again. Um, and the people who were only sort of half radicalized from the last time may be fully radicalized now. So those people are still around. They're still going to be radicalized no matter who wins, which is, a positive outcome of actually trying. That wouldn't have happened if Bernie didn't run or didn't have any chance of winning. And then the attempt to put pressure on Joe Biden to move him left. Now, that was pretty much like the most important strategy because it's like I was saying before, like you're not going to convince many people who have already decided to vote before or who are already a voter to vote for Joe Biden. Um, the reason, like moving him left, doesn't really change that equation. you would try to move them left to reach the people who don't vote at all, non-voters, people who aren't politically engaged, etc. That's what moving left helps you with, getting those people. That's moving left gives you those policies to go and outreach to them as well, making an actual effective strategy. Whereas now, if you try to market Biden to those people, you're just going to come off as fake as he is and as he seems. You need something tangible, like he may be fake, but he swore in blood he was giving us Medicare for all or whatever, like that's something you can actually reach out to people with. So the attempt to move Biden left was the attempt to make that strategy a reality, to actually give us that chance. But instead, Biden double, tripled, quadrupled down on saying, no, I'm not moving left. I'm a capitalist. Yee-haw. Like, he just completely shut that down. Now, the attempt to do that was still, a positive thing, because it's now nobody's going to be surprised when Biden doesn't move left after the election. Now we've all seen that he isn't moving left no matter what. So we are more prepared for what's going to happen, which is him probably going even further right. So that's the one end of the equation is, what can you do in this election? I still think voting green is the best possible use of your strategic resources, because you need to get them to grow, at least to it's important for progressives not to be seen as a non-existent movement. And when the only party with a progressive platform is basically getting nowhere, the message that sends to everyone is don't take the progressive movement seriously. And then it may not be anywhere near to what reality is like, but that narrative is what the mainstream media and other politicians and capitalists and Hollywood stars and whatever will use to maintain the status quo. So it's really important that you have a change in the landscape. The party needs to start growing. So I still think that is actually going to be the best possible strategic resource. And then after that, maybe trying to reach Trump supporters, but you got nothing, I guess, there is like a little bit of talk of committing to some kind of climate change deal if Biden wins. So, something, I think maybe even like decriminalizing, but not legalizing, which is like what? Weed, or the minimum wage. Like there might be a few policies that you can actually try to talk people, but it's not going to be like total non-voters or total politically non-active people. You might reach people who have considered trying to participate, because there's nothing to be energized about. You need them to make like a mental choice about it. And then on the other end of the equation, you have Trump, you have all of his shenanigans, you have, the Supreme Court nominee potential, and it is pretty much like, if you can imagine like fascism as a person running, at this point in time, it would be like them trying to score a touchdown, and they are trying to run as fast as they can. And so as a progressive, you are basically the defending team trying to stop that from happening. And basically Biden is blocking you from doing that. So it's going to take teamwork, basically, because if it's only one person going in at a time trying to stop fascism from running as fast as, so because fascism has this protection now, because it has a party that wants to basically continue all the policies that Trump is doing, but just in a nicer rhetoric and being less open about it and more secretive, like how Obama did, like things that in many ways make Trump seem tame, although what Trump threatens is much more intense. But in terms of what they've actually done, I would say Obama, if you see what Obama did with Flint, like, I have no doubts he would have treated the pandemic the same way Trump did. It's like Trump, Trump wants the Wall Street to do well for his ego. Obama wants the Wall Street to do well because he's a bootlicker to the Wall Street donors. So, he would have still downplayed it. Obama would. He literally pretended to drink Flint water when the water was still poison. You can't really think he would have done better than Trump. So that's it. Like, Obama is Trump, Biden is Trump. They're on their team. They're on one team, and so Biden is now, because Biden is the official opposition and there's no other opposition, with enough people behind it to get taken seriously, that allows fascism to go for that sprint. That is the gap, that is the opening created for them to go for a touchdown. And obviously, by touchdown, maybe full on dictatorship, whatever, the worst things you can imagine, which, is bad, but we can't pretend that Biden is the solution. You can't be like, Trump or fashion teammates will stop him. No, like, they want him to touch down too. Even if, for some aesthetic reasons they pretend not to hate them. It's like, oh, you suck, dude. Or like, it's like, yeah, bro, you the worst, like, ironically or something, as the person succeeding. And it's like, I don't know what their vibe is, but Biden is that defending player, and you need teamwork so that you can close ranks. And so that's stuff like mutual aid to help communities become more resilient. That is stuff, and when I say to help communities become more self-sufficient or resilient, obviously, I've heard some people say like that using the word communities, like, it's overdone, but I'm using it because that's what is needed. So if you don't actually have a real community, then the mutual aid is step one to establish that community, and then to make it more resilient, and then self-sufficient. So it's not to suggest that communities already exist everywhere. Most people probably don't actually live in community. I don't. I'm hoping to get to know the neighbors a bit more and to try and become a community here where I live, but at the moment, we're still mostly strangers. It's not really community. Community is the kind of situation where, like, your kids run off, if you have kids or whatever, they run off in the afternoon and you have no idea where they are, but they're safe because there's enough of a vibe of community where, it's that, I don't want to get onto that track, but it's that kind of thing where, like, there's no fear because you are one unit, basically. So you got to get the community if you don't have it. And mutual aid is how you get it. So mutual aid to help communities is still a valid statement, I think. And also stuff like organizing general strikes and those kinds of things. Because ultimately that is the only weapon with sufficient power to achieve anything that we might dream of. Like, the amount of power and the amount of change you can get with a general strike will be, in a couple of weeks, the equivalent to decades of the regular political process. And obviously a general strike is also not something you can just click your fingers and make happen, but things can go viral. If everyone who spent like half their day making memes for Bernie Sanders spent half their day making memes for a general strike, it would be trending. It's like, it's not impossible. It just It requires actual focus and direction and intention. So, but, if you did say have a general strike, you could basically say like, okay, we want every single person on the Supreme Court to be, resigned or whatever. We're going to start again, and this time we're going to elect the judges. You could get that kind of thing put into place within a couple of weeks of a general strike ongoing, and there would be, no fear of what if they nominate this person we don't like. You would just be like, we the people, are vetoing your nomination. And that's totally viable, but again, difficult to make happen, just like community. But ironically as well, the better your community and your mutual aid is, the better they can handle doing general strikes. They can take off work for a couple of weeks because the community will have their back. And when you don't have community, then it makes things like a general strike way harder. So you need both. You need community of people who are willing to participate in a general strike, communities of people. And, that's basically boils down to getting people to become radical leftists or whatever, like not getting them to, but explaining it and getting them on board by having better persuasive arguments and actions. And so there isn't any shortcut to solve things, because the things that would be shortcuts are not shortcuts to get into place when they're not in place. And so all that means is that those things, those really powerful like tools in your toolbox, your power tools, you need those to win the war. And so you've got to pick your battles in such a way that you can actually gain access to those power tools. So what you do now must be building towards that. So you must be doing things like mutual aid and labor organizing now, so that in the future, you have access to that. And even if things collapse, the organized labor and organized community, together is basically like your ingredients for anarchism. And so if that's something that is widespread, if there's a collapse, you're more likely to go towards anarchism. Whereas if that isn't in place and things collapse, you're more likely to go towards fascism. So it's the most anti-fascist you can be. And actually, although there is value in things like trying to deplatform fascists by, counter-protesting them, or, trying to raise awareness to their problematic whatever, like all that stuff has value, obviously, but on its own, without that is not a power tool. That's not going to get the job done. And it might help you in coordination with some power tools, but yeah, the power tools, the medium power tools and the low power tools, I would say there are. Medium power would be like, if Bernie was the nominee and you had options of getting people on board with it via like, a non-radical way. And maybe, who knows, but as terrible as things are, humanity's survival depends on us learning that mutual aid and organizing ourselves together is how we survive, how we are able to resist, overcome, and take control of the means of production to use them towards healing the planet instead of destroying it. That's the lesson we need to learn. And the thing that gives me a bit of hope is that one thing brains are good at in general is problem solving. And, I believe that's the solution to these problems. And my brain is what made me believe that. So if my brain is problem solving and thinking that's the answer, I'm sure many others are too. And so the more people like that happens to, we can end up starting to get together and help each other start working towards building those power tools. And so, if I guess maybe the takeaway is if you know of other radical people in your area or even online, you can connect with them and try and help each other to get mutual aid and organized labor going. And, you know, so yeah, that's my thoughts. So basically, in my opinion, the election is already decided, one way or another. Like, I don't know who's going to win. I just know that the factors in play are not changing, and so there's no surprise ahead. Like, if Trump wins, I won't be surprised. If Biden wins, I won't be surprised. And any other result would be surprising, but I don't think it's going to happen. And, you know, so if Trump wins, it will be because Biden is worse than Hillary and they intentionally ran a bad candidate because they wanted to lose. If Biden wins, it might be because enough people are sick of Trump to actually vote. And, you know, if, you know, that may happen, but there's no amount of progressive activism that's going to make that any more likely. They either are that sick of Trump or they're not. Nothing you're going to do to them is going to make them more sick of Trump than 5 seconds of seeing him on TV will remind him that he is. He's either that repulsive to them or he's not. You know, you can't defend Biden into making him more or less repulsive. Biden is a placeholder candidate. Trump is running on his own, basically. Do people? It's like yes or no. Like, should I continue? Yes or no. Not is it me or someone else. There's no one else. Like, Biden is an empty shell. And yeah. Anyway, you know that means his donors will be making the decisions. So get ready for the pandemic response to be similar to Obama's, which was to let 5 million families, lose their homes while cutting food stamps and then bailing out the banks and bailing out the big business, more austerity, screwing over workers. That's Biden's recipe. We got to prepare for that. We prepare for that by mutual aid, connecting with other radicals, connecting with people in your neighborhood, trying to form communities so you can have mutual aid networks and try and organize labor if you can, and try and work towards those kinds of connected unity-based things that are based in relationship, not marketing, based in common interests, not common slogans or sides, and those people can end up helping in any other way too. If your dream is for some kind of electoral advantage, mutual aid and organized labor can help more than pretty much everything else in getting specific people elected. That's why it matters so much when unions endorse Bernie or whatever. So yeah, that's it. So this may have just been more of the same stuff I've said before, but I did also just want to get it off my chest and just make a video because nothing much else floating around in my mind right now, except for Magic the Gathering, which I want to actually maybe get back to doing some gaming videos because after they banned Omnath, it started to feel a lot more fun to play. So I might actually get the energy up for recording some videos sometime. But that would be on my gaming channel, which I haven't posted to in a while. So yeah, anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Bye!